International conference on climate change is gathering in Paris today. It's already been marred, though, by fierce clashes between police and climate activists. Tear gas was used to disperse the crowds of demonstrators who marched through Paris, despite a ban on large gatherings imposed under the current state of emergency. President Francois Hollande condemning the clashes.
We knew there would be troublemakers who have nothing to do with the environmental activists. It's regrettable, I'd even say scandalous, that it happened at the Place de la République, where all those flowers have been laid down, all those candles in the memory of those who fell under the terrorist bullets.
Nearly 150 world leaders are expected in the French capital, with the conference coming at a particularly tense time in international relations. RT's Daniel Bushell reports from Paris.
There could be some potentially less than cordial one-to-ones here, with world leaders at odds during a particularly tense time for the world. After Turkey shot down a Russian Sukhoi jet on Tuesday, will President Erdogan again be blanked by Vladimir Putin? Twice already, Turkey's head of state's officially requested a phone conversation with Russia's president, but received no reply. Now Erdogan's officially requested a tete-a-tete at this conference. The Kremlin press service told us Putin's been informed of this request, but so far is keeping his counsel. Will Obama and Putin continue their thawing relations after the impromptu chat at the G20? Or will America's links to NATO partner Ankara again kick ties with Moscow into the long grass? Israel Premier's Netanyahu meets President Putin at 4 p.m. local time. Diplomats told me they'll discuss, quote, Syria's war and the fight against terror. The terror attacks here 3 weeks ago overshadow this entire event, with all public protest banned on safety fears, an unprecedented 120,000 soldiers and cops patrolling the streets. We've been told to arrive several hours earlier than normal for extra checks here. As for the climate summit itself, the stated goal is to achieve a binding and universal agreement on climate controls after 2 decades of talks. But a real last-minute disagreement remains, with fingers pointed at the US in particular for reported unwillingness to place limits on its industries. America torpedoed Kyoto in 1997. We'll soon see if a similar fate awaits Paris 2015.
And with so many world leaders flocking to Paris, organizers have decided it's too many people for one room to handle. Heads of states and governments have been divided into 2 groups and will give their speeches in 2 different rooms. Given the current tensions and perhaps to avoid any potential awkwardness, the Russian and Turkish presidents have been sent to their own corners. Now, France has chosen the Le Bourget area north of Paris to host the talks on curbing carbon emissions. It features Europe's busiest private airport, which certainly has been mocked by many given how much emissions the private jets there are spewing out.
What a powerful rebuke to the terrorists it will be when the world stands as one and shows that we will not be deterred from building a better future for our children.
That, by the way, is perhaps the most ludicrous comment I've ever heard.
When we do not address climate change properly, young people who are jobless and who are frustrated may join these foreign terrorist fighters.
The day before the climate conference, a refugee-focused EU summit with Turkey occurred in Brussels, at the meeting exposing deep divisions on solving the crisis. Alexis Tsipras took to Twitter to point out it was ironic that while having costly surveillance technology in the skies, countries can't resolve the issue of people smuggling on the ground.
To Prime Minister Davutoglu, fortunately our pilots are not as mercurial as yours against the Russians.
Comments on pilots seem hardly in tune with the spirit of the day. Alexis, let us focus on our positive agenda.
And that was exactly what the Turkish Prime Minister did, as he seemed much more focused not on the migrant crisis, but about another issue entirely.
Today, this is a historic day in our accession process to the EU. This meeting itself is not just to discuss the issue of migration. I like the phrase which is in our text today, to re-energize accession process. The accession process of Turkey, Turkish EU accession process, to re-energize this great ideal, see Turkey as a member of the family. I want to say one thing, one message from Ankara, clear message. We are a European nation.
While some at the Migrant Summit are more concerned about joining the European family, others, like the EU Council President Donald Tusk, are simply trying to keep what's already there in the family.
Our main goal is to stem the flow of migrants to Europe. Let us not be naive, though. The Turkey is not the only key to solving the migration crisis. The most important one is our responsibility and duty to protect our external borders. I will repeat this again. Without control on our external borders, Schengen will become history.
And we spoke to Laszlo Maratz, Professor of European Studies at the University of Amsterdam. He thinks the proposed visa-free regime with Turkey could actually create brand new problems for the European Union.
Probably what refugees and migrants from outside of Europe will try to do is to go to Turkey and to get a Turkish passport and try to get into Europe. So basically, in order to have this system working, the Turkish citizens should not have received a visa-free entrance to Europe, because now it will be probably used by human smugglers, by people who will try to buy illegally Turkish passports, or they try to fraud Turkish passports. So I think it again focuses that the Frontex and other European agencies for protecting the border cannot give this away to the Turkish authorities. Europe has to be active in the border protection of Greece and Italy, independently of what the Turkish authorities will do.
Now, a Syrian father is accusing the Pentagon of covering up the deaths of his 6 children in U.S. airstrikes. We'll be covering that story in a few minutes. We're back in a sec here on RT International.